Welcome to Saints Take 5, a true crime commentary channel. So if you follow true crime cases and you're looking for a place to hang out and continue the conversation about cases you're probably already familiar with, then this might be the place for you. Hit the subscribe button to increase the likelihood of my videos showing up on your homepage, and if you hit the bell in addition to the subscribe button, you will be notified every time I upload a video. The night of Saturday, September 6, 1975, curiosity lured 16-year-old Anthony Lwowski out of his bedroom. Perhaps it was an urgent knock at the front door, the voice of a late-night visitor, or the exclamations of his worried parents. Whatever the signal, he probably felt like he was being pulled into the twilight zone, a nightmare he would never wake from. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. His big sister's fiancé was standing before the family, informing them that Sylvia was missing. Frank explained that the two had gotten into a fight in his car after their movie date. Sylvia was so angry that she took her glasses off and threw them at the dashboard. Then she ran from the car. He somehow lost sight of her. He searched the area and could not find her. Anthony's mother, Miss Eva, called police to file a missing person report, but she was told that since Sylvia was a 22-year-old adult, they would have to wait 24 hours before filing her daughter's report. Miss Eva grabbed the car keys and drove around looking for Sylvia, but she was nowhere to be found. The next day, September 7th, Miss Eva went in person to the police station and filed a report, but it sounds like it might as well have been thrown in a wood chipper. The police classified it as a voluntary missing case. Sylvia walked off. She left on her own. Adults can disappear if they want to. I don't know for sure what the police did or didn't do, but based on what family has said and the information on the internet, there was no investigation into her disappearance. Since this was 1975, policy and procedures were different, statistical data was sparse, and technology crucial to solving cases today was non-existent back then. There were no sniffer dogs trying to track her down, no evidence collected, no questions asked, no timeline verified, no witnesses interviewed, and no physical searches, maybe a bolo at best. For some reason, no publicity was ordered, and we're not sure if that was Miss Eva's decision or a police decision, but it was surely another dagger into the heart of hope. There were no missing person posters, no billboards with Sylvia's face on them, and no mention of her on the 6 o'clock news. Anthony remembers that his parents hired a local private investigator for a short period of time. Sylvia's best friend Lauren also remembers the existence of this PI, but unfortunately they don't recall the name or company of the investigator, and they haven't been able to locate the case file, notes, or anything that the investigation yielded. In 2010, Lauren got a call from a cold case detective, and she briefly spoke to him on the phone. This was the first time any police had asked her questions about Sylvia's disappearance. We can certainly try to investigate her disappearance now, but we can't undo mistakes made in the past. Frank's old car is probably a hunk of rust rotting away in a junkyard somewhere. Nobody seems to know what happened to Sylvia's glasses, or what condition they were in. The police report says they were left in the car when she fled. But were they broken? Was there glass in the car? Did Miss Eva and Mr. Joe physically see her glasses? Were they returned to them? I'm sure any receipts or movie ticket stubs are long gone. The theater itself is gone. Any potential witnesses could be dead by now. And of those alive today, do you think they'd actually remember much about a random couple fighting in their car? It's so incredibly frustrating. Sylvia has been missing for 50 years. Her parents passed away without ever knowing what happened to their beautiful daughter. Her friends and family haven't found her. Mother Nature hasn't found her. Even the government hasn't found her. Where is Sylvia Lwowski?
You know it. You know it, for Sunday. You know it, for the Lord. You know it, for Sunday. You know it, for the Lord. You know it, for Sunday. You know it, for the Lord. You know it, for Sunday.
Welcome to part 4 of my Sylvia Lwowski series. I highly recommend that you go back and watch the first 3 parts before watching this one. In part 1, we discuss victimology, Sylvia's upbringing, her relationships with loved ones, and events leading up to her disappearance. In part 2, we focused on the day she disappeared, and in part 3, we talked about things that happened after her disappearance, and we raised a lot of questions that we don't yet have answers to. Today we're going to explore some of the theories as to what happened to her, beginning with the initial assumption that she voluntarily went missing. But first, I want to comment further on what I was saying in the beginning about police involvement. You guys have probably already noticed that on the one hand, I say there was no investigation, but on the other hand, I share tidbits of information that make it sound like there was. I honestly don't know. I'm just as confused as you guys. If police are investigating something, they usually keep the details to themselves, and they're not even obligated to admit the existence of a case. I would think that there was at least a casual preliminary questioning of Frank after Miss Eva filed the police report, since he was the last person with Sylvia, and he wasn't present when Miss Eva filed it. So you would think that they would at least get his input, because Miss Eva wasn't even there. Remember in a previous part, I said that the cops were speaking to Frank. That was an assumption I made, because remember how I mentioned that Miss Eva was calling Frank to ask him questions, and he was very rude to her. One of the things he told her was, "The police are handling it. Don't call here again." So I assumed that "the police are handling it" was his way of saying, "Please stop questioning me. I'm being questioned to death by police. Then you and Lauren and everyone else calls me with questions too. Please chill. They're doing their job." I thought that "the police are handling it" is his acknowledgement and confirmation that they indeed were doing something that gave him the impression that they were active on the case. And the cops questioning him would be the dead giveaway of activity, right? But he also could have been making the assumption that the police were handling it since Miss Eva filed a report. It doesn't necessarily mean that they actually interviewed him. But I just wanted to add that, but just keep in mind, we're not really sure what the police did or didn't do. Okay, so let's move on. Usually when a person voluntarily goes missing, I figure they are either running towards something or running away from something. What could Sylvia have been running toward? As far as we know, the most exciting plan that Sylvia had at the time was to marry Frank. They had already been a couple for approximately 18 to 24 months, so almost 2 years. Her mindset was likely already thinking in terms of us and we instead of I and me. She was visualizing a future that had Frank in it. So dreams like running off to be a Vegas showgirl or moving to Paris to be a chef would not be compatible with married life with Frank. So she likely wasn't thinking such things, and there's no indications that she was. Planning a wedding is a big enough task. No one in her life spoke of her obsession with a faraway place or a desire to live an alternative lifestyle to the one she was currently living. Therefore, I would rule out that she would have been running towards something. Then there's running away from something. Sylvia was literally running away from Frank in his car after a fight. We don't know what they fought about, but she was obviously furious. I wonder what provoked that anger in her, and we can speculate about the fight later on, but I agree it sounds like Sylvia voluntarily left the car. But voluntarily leaving the car and voluntarily missing are two different things. Do you think that after leaving that car, Sylvia thought, I think I'll start a completely new life now? When she left her house around 5:30 p.m., She had intentions of going on a date and returning that night. She wasn't planning an Amazonian adventure. She didn't know she was going to get into an explosive argument with Frank and walk off. There was no indication at the time of her disappearance that this fight resulted in a breakup. Frank didn't say they broke up. He didn't say the engagement and wedding was off, and he didn't say he had the engagement ring. He said she walked off wearing it, and as far as Miss Eva knew, she was wearing it. When Sylvia walked off, she expressed the intention of getting a bus home. So she had a plan to get a bus and go home. At the moment, it was Frank and the argument in the confined space of the car that she was getting away from, with full intentions of going back home to her family, even dealing with the lingering awkwardness from the fight with her father at the graduation party 2 weeks prior. Weren't the police curious as to why she never made it on the bus that night, or why she never made it home that night? I can totally understand why they thought she was voluntarily missing at that point. It is indeed highly likely that she changed her mind and decided to call a friend to pick her up and stay the night, or a few nights at their house to calm down and reflect. The first choice person she would have called was her best friend Lauren. Whenever she was struggling emotionally, she would run to Lauren for support and comfort. Sylvia was welcomed in Lauren's home, and Sylvia never had to hide out there. Sylvia always told her parents where she would be. But Sylvia didn't call Lauren. Why not? And Sylvia didn't call her parents. Why not? Nor did she call anyone else that we know of. Sylvia's social group was rather small. Like I mentioned in the previous videos, she spent most of her time at home with her family, with her fiancé Frank, or her best friend Lauren. Sylvia did have good friends at Wagner, like her sorority sisters, but I don't think they saw each other as much after graduation, and none of those young ladies had any idea where Sylvia was either. I remember listening to a podcast, although I don't recall which one, but there was a retired detective that was reflecting on his time working in the 70s, 80s, and 90s in a big metropolitan city. He said something like they would get between 2,000 and 4,000 missing person calls a day. I was shocked, but considering that the city's population was in the hundreds of thousands, it kind of makes sense. But can you imagine that many a day? It's physically impossible to conduct top-notch investigations into every single one of those, and it doesn't really make sense to. Because as almost everyone who follows true crime knows, the vast majority of missing people are found or return home within 24 hours. The next portion of people are located within 3 days. A much smaller portion returns within a week. A couple stragglers are gone over a week to a month, and it's rare that someone is gone over a month, and very rare past a year. So you could have 60,000 missing person calls in a month, and virtually every single one of them is recovered by the end of the month. That's wild. So now I can kind of see why the police say, let's wait 24 hours when it comes to adults. It must be difficult for police to determine which ones out of the 60,000 are going to be the unicorns. I guess it comes down to circumstances and duration. I can understand why Sylvia's circumstances may not have caused much alarm in the 1970s. Often when people think of the 1970s, they think sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and long-haired hippies hitchhiking to California. There certainly was a lot of that among young people, but Sylvia didn't really fit that type, though. She wasn't an angel, but she was far from the counterculture rebellious type. She wasn't snorting snoodle doodle with 50 naked guys while jamming out on her piccolo. Like I mentioned before, Anthony said she wasn't a party girl, and Lauren said she wasn't into the counterculture scene. She wanted to marry and start a family. She was a college graduate with excellent grades. She dressed conservatively, a responsible rule follower for the most part, a conformist despite her artistic flair and musical talents. I wish the police had a clear image of that. And yes, she voluntarily left the car extremely upset and could have gotten a ride from a friend, whether she called them or randomly bumped into them in the area, but at some point, the duration of her absence must have become concerning. I would think that after a month of being gone and none of the closest people to her have seen her or heard from her, that police should have been very concerned. I would think that most casual acquaintances would not be cool with her crashing on their couch for over a month. After a year or 3, they should have been even more worried since she would have fallen into that category of extremely rare disappearances. But apparently they seemed to think she was still voluntarily missing, out there living a new life. What about the 5-year mark or the 10-year mark? Wouldn't they think, okay, something isn't right here. Maybe we should track her down in this new life that she's living. And when the 20-year, 30-year, 40-year mark passed, and there was not a whisper of her, did the approach change? This isn't a unicorn. This is a leprechaun mermaid. Starting a new life can be incredibly difficult, especially if a person attempts to do it with zero savings and no preparation. People often ask abused women, why don't you just leave? One of the reasons they can be hesitant is because they aren't just leaving a dangerous man, they're leaving their entire life, their home, and every single cherished or useful or expensive or irreplaceable sentimental thing inside of it. They can be losing people they adore, like coworkers, neighbors, friends, and their partner's family. They may even lose their kids and pets. Their financial situation may change drastically, and they may even lose their lives physically. But my point is, a person willing to endure abuse in exchange for their creature comforts and basic survival needs speaks volumes about the importance of those things. I'm not saying that I think that Sylvia and Frank's relationship was abusive. There's no indication of that. I'm highlighting the importance of the creature comforts in our life and everyone's hesitation to give those things up. And if a person in such a dangerous, volatile situation struggles with that choice, you mean to tell me that Sylvia, who's just having a spat with her fiance one night, isn't struggling with that and it's easy for her to just walk off? I doubt it. If I were to say to you, get up and go outside and start a new life right now. You have to wear what you're wearing right now. You cannot add anything to your outfit. No shoes, no coat. And for those of you that wear glasses, you can't take those with you. Sylvia didn't have hers, so neither will you. You can only take what you're holding in your hands or in your pockets. You can only take under $50 and will not be able to use any of your money. You cannot take food, water, or anything. Only take what is on your body. And you can't take your car, bike, or any method of transportation that belongs to you. Now go. Walk. Go live your new life and never come back. In the comments section of this video, write down your thoughts. What was running through your mind? What are your concerns? Did you think, what about my prescription medications? Or who's going to take care of my kids? Where will I sleep? It's below zero outside. I don't have enough money. I can't see without my glasses. I don't have my coffee and cigarettes. I'm going to miss Christmas. Where will I go to the bathroom and how will I wipe my bum? What about feminine products or toothpaste? How will I get to work? I can't wear this. For most people, it scares the crap out of them to part with their creature comforts. Sylvia had never lived on her own. She didn't have a job. She didn't have a car. She had never lived in poverty, and she wasn't a survivalist. She could identify wild raspberries, but she'd probably stay far away from those since the last time she picked them, she got a mean case of the chiggers. I remember when my sister was about 5 years old. She got mad at my mom because she couldn't get something she wanted. She declared that she was running away and walked out the front door. I watched her through the window as she walked down our cement walkway. I said, Mom, she's running away, and she has your small brown suitcase. My mom joined me at the window, and we both watched her walk to the end of the street near the mailbox. My mom was amused, but I was kind of worried. I said, "Mom, why are you laughing?" She said, "She's not going anywhere. She'll be back when she thinks about where she's going to sleep, what she's going to eat, and she misses her toys." Then I said, "Wait, she's turning around. She's coming back." As my sister approached the door, we pretended to be doing the same things we were doing when she left. She came in, set the suitcase on the sofa, and ran upstairs to her room and slammed the door. I said, "Let's see what she packed." And I opened the suitcase. She packed 3 things: her whoopee, which was her security blanket, a framed photo of my grandparents that she snagged from the end table in the living room, and a pack of those brownies with a few nuts on top that kind of look like a domino. Anyway, my point is, if my 5-year-old sister was able to grasp the enormous implications of running off to start a new life with no resources, I'm sure that 22-year-old Sylvia could too. Is it possible that she ran off to start a new life? Sure. Some people do take off with virtually nothing, but even those types tend to have some sort of destination. Maybe to find their long lost biological father in Chicago, or a favorite aunt in Sacramento, or an ex boyfriend in Texas. But Sylvia didn't have much extended family or contacts in other states. From my understanding, Miss Eva was originally from Poland, then lived in Germany when she met Mr. Joe. So her side of the family was in Europe, and Mr. Joe didn't have much family in the United States. Based on the cases I've heard of people running off like that, it seems like there's risk factors. A history of running away and not telling anyone where they were going, a history of substance abuse, mental illness, or sex work. Many tend to come from highly dysfunctional families with extreme abuse or cruelty in the household. Sylvia didn't have any of the main risk factors. Sylvia had a loving and supportive family, a lifelong best friend that she could tell her deepest secrets to, and she had a herd of pets that she adored, and they relied on her. It breaks my heart imagining them waiting by the doors and windows for her to return. Sometimes pets won't eat, sleep, or play when their favorite human is gone. I wonder if that played a role in her poodle Fifi's death. I can't imagine that Sylvia would willingly leave them. I can't think of a reason why a fight with her fiancé would cause her to not come home. She didn't live with him. She lives with her parents. She could go home and have all of her creature comforts and avoid Frank if she wanted to. Why complicate her life entirely just because of a fight? As I mentioned earlier, Frank didn't say there was a breakup, but as Sylvia walked away, vanishing into the night, she alone could have decided to end things and wanted to avoid telling everyone, including Frank. She could have been so emotional that she couldn't even utter the words. It can be hard to tell your partner that you don't want to be with them anymore, and even harder to admit your reasons why. It can be even worse to inform your friends and family. Some people will scold you for leaving such a great catch, when the truth is they're a total dumpster fire. Some people will drop truth bombs on you, like, "Well, good riddance. I never understood why you put up with a man that had 3 other secret families." And no one wants to hear gossip about what or who their ex is doing now. It's even harder if you're talking about a wedding being canceled. According to Lauren, who would have been Sylvia's maid of honor, the couple didn't have any set plans for the wedding yet. They were just basking in the joy of becoming engaged and kicking around ideas. I don't think they had a set date or a venue booked, and invitations had not been sent out yet. They held a small engagement party, but that's about it. Most voluntarily missing people flee because they're emotionally distraught. An emotionally distressed mind typically doesn't make good decisions. But as they say, time heals wounds. Pain lessens, perceptions change, and the person almost always resurfaces once they've gained mental clarity and emotional stability. Often, what was once heartbreaking and embarrassing turns out to be the best decision they ever made. I seriously doubt that Sylvia is a 70-year-old woman still mad at a boyfriend she had at 22, unless she's some sort of Miss Haversham or something, which is unlikely. Reflecting on Sylvia's past behavior when confronted with difficult decisions, we see evidence of a young lady that doesn't run when things get tough. She doesn't self sabotage by turning to substances or risky behavior, and she doesn't hide from her loved ones. When Sylvia witnessed physical violence between her fiancé and his mother, she went to her best friend to talk about it. When her father's behavior embarrassed her at her graduation party, she did give him the silent treatment, but she didn't run away. She vented about it to both Lauren and Frank. But more importantly, when Sylvia discovered that she was pregnant out of wedlock, she had the courage to tell the father of her child about it. They discussed the situation and they agreed to terminate the pregnancy. Regardless of your personal feelings about it, there's no denying that this was clearly the most difficult, devastating thing she had ever had to deal with, physically, emotionally, and financially. She also turned to Lauren during this tough time. She didn't shut down and she didn't run away. She didn't voluntarily go missing then, so why would she after a fight? Voluntarily missing people usually do stay in contact with someone. Being mad at one person doesn't mean you avoid absolutely everyone else in your life, too. Most voluntarily missing people will disconnect from one group of people, but they'll remain in contact with individuals from another group. For example, a person's family may not know where they are, but their friends do. Or their friends and family can't find them, but their romantic partner knows exactly where they are. Or sometimes a father may not know where his daughter is, but the mother is secretly meeting up with her to give her money, food, or a hug. Many voluntarily missing people will occasionally call to say they're okay, but they refuse to say where they are or give details. Many will send an annual holiday or birthday card, and there may be signs that they stopped by the house when no one was home. Most don't stray too far from home. The majority of voluntarily missing people stay within a 20-mile radius. The further the distance, the rarer it is. It's extremely rare that a person leaves the country. The fact that they typically stay in the same area also increases their chances of bumping into someone they know. No one has heard from Sylvia. No one has seen her. Not a single sighting in a grocery store, not a single rumor of her living a life somewhere else. Sylvia walked away with nothing but the clothes on her back in early September of 1975, with another harsh New York winter just a few weeks away. She made no preparations to disappear. She left with no resources. She never expressed a desire to live a life different than the one she was living. No plan B if things didn't work out with Frank. She had problems just like everyone does, but she didn't fit the profile of the type of person that goes voluntarily missing, and the risk factors weren't present. She exhibited resiliency and healthy coping skills when faced with devastating challenges. She didn't run away from people in tough times. In fact, she gravitated toward them. She sought help and support. She welcomed advice, and she expressed her emotions rather than bottling them up. She hasn't reached out to anyone in 50 years. No one has spotted her in public, and no one has interacted with her in private. Pets passed away. Her best friend got married. Her little brother accomplished many things. Her own parents aged their way to heaven. Most of her classmates that celebrated their college graduation with her are retired now, and even some of them have passed away. And none of these monumental events lured Sylvia out of the secret new life she's suspected of living. In my opinion, the most baffling aspect of all is her ability to hide from even the United States government for 5 decades. Although it would have been easier for her to create an alias and disappear in the 1970s compared to today, it was no easy feat. This was a young lady that barely knew how to adult as herself, let alone as someone else. She didn't associate with the type of characters that could have helped her disappear. She couldn't have Googled it. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I've always heard that if you check out controversial books from the local library, even those moves are tracked by the government. It seems like every move we make has a corresponding document. Everyone has a long paper trail behind them, mapping the milestones of their lives. We live from birth certificate to death certificate. And now, with all the technology, we have vast digital footprints. But it seems that Sylvia's file of life has nothing but dust and tumbleweeds in it. There are no records showing that Sylvia married or divorced anyone, nor are there any records of her giving birth to any children. That's fine. Some people choose to remain single without children. But there are no employment records, no social security activity, and no updated driver's licenses. She would have to work somewhere to support herself, right? Well, many jobs require candidates to get background checks, take fingerprints, get vaccines, undergo training or pass state exams, and get medical physicals stating that you're physically capable of performing the job. Sylvia hasn't done any of that. She hasn't filed taxes, she has no bank accounts or investments, and there's no credit cards or debts in her name. There's no activity on her passport. She probably doesn't even have it. There's no activity on her credit report, no loans or vehicle purchases. There are no real estate transactions, no homes purchased or apartments rented. As you guys are well aware, social media is pretty exciting, and yet there's no record of her using that either. That would have been a great way for her to contact loved ones and apologize or just lurk if she wanted to. The invention of ancestry websites was also pretty cool. Everybody wanted to log in and build their family trees, but Sylvia hasn't been active there either. As I mentioned earlier, the Lwowskis called every transportation hub, checking to see if Sylvia had purchased tickets there and traveled through. Nope, nothing. They called police stations and prisons. They called hospitals and homeless shelters. They checked hotels and everywhere they could think of, in virtually every state, and not a single sign of her. All government paperwork and signs of life from Sylvia Lwowski stopped September 6, 1975. This, combined with all other considerations we've discussed, leads me to strongly believe that Sylvia Lwowski did not voluntarily go missing on that cool autumn evening half a century ago, and that determination could have been made far, far sooner. Sadly, the most likely explanation for her lack of government records, her non existent communications, and absence of physical accountability is that she is likely deceased, and probably has been for a very long time, most likely the night she disappeared. So, what happened when Sylvia left Frank's car that night? We will discuss more theories in my next video, but first I want to give you guys some basic brief insight into the general location where Sylvia disappeared. Usually when I think of an island, I imagine a hunk of land surrounded on all sides by vast oceans. So it was really interesting to me to see how close Staten Island sits to the mainland of the US. There's only a narrow waterway separating Staten Island from New Jersey. There are four main bridges on Staten Island. Three of them connect to New Jersey, and one of them connects to Brooklyn, New York. That one is called the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. On this picture, I have used red arrows to point out two defining characteristics on the map that helped me locate significant areas relevant to this case. The lower or more southern arrow is pointing to what looks like a little gulf. This gulf is called Great Kills Harbor. The red dot denotes the general area where Lauren and Sylvia lived. So whenever I need to find their neighborhoods, I just look for that harbor along the shoreline. The other red arrow is pointing to a green space on the map. That green space is referred to as the green belt, and it represents forested areas. It consists of parks, a wildlife refuge, a nature preserve, and those types of places. And the green belt circles around a white area that kind of looks like an upside down arrowhead or triangle that comes to a sharp point. That arrowhead is a developed area where there are lots of businesses. This area is basically a main shopping hub for Staten Islanders. The Staten Island Mall is in that area. That's where Sylvia and Lauren went shopping earlier in the day before she disappeared. The Kmart shopping center is also there. The Island movie theater was a part of that Kmart shopping center. So now we're going to look at a slightly more zoomed in view of Staten Island. And I have marked certain areas of interest with numbers to make it easier for you. If you look at number 1, that's where Staten Island kind of borders New Jersey. You'd have to take bridges, of course, to get there, but it's very close. On the other side of the picture, I have a number 2. And above that number 2, you will see the Verrazano Narrows Bridge connecting Staten Island, New York to Brooklyn, New York. Numbers 3 and 4 are kinda small, but you'll see that they're separated by a red dotted line. The red dotted line is Richmond Avenue. That road runs along the side of the Arrowhead/shopping hub. And Richmond Avenue is a busy road lined with bus stops. So on one side of Richmond Avenue is number 3. That is currently a grassy park, but back in 1975 it was the Fresh Kills landfill, which was a huge 2,000-acre landfill. So that's where New York City's garbage was dumped. It was a marshy, mucky area that couldn't be built on, and apparently the mafia often used it to dispose of their unwanted items too, if you know what I mean. Across from that landfill, number 4, is where the Kmart Plaza and movie theater was. So that's where Sylvia went on her date with Frank. If you look at number 5, you'll see that little gulf called Great Kills Harbor again. That's where Sylvia and Lauren lived. And remember, they only lived about 2 miles from each other. Number 6 was the general area where Frank lived. So there's quite a bit of distance between Sylvia's house and Frank's house. But it was only about a 20-30 minute drive. So it's a little further, but not too bad. In the next photo, we're looking at the point of the arrowhead. The red X is showing the Kmart shopping center. Richmond Avenue runs along the left side of the arrowhead point, so you would turn out of the shopping center onto Richmond Avenue. On the other side of Richmond Avenue, across from the shopping center, you'll see that grassy area with the waterway running along it. That was the landfill. But as I mentioned, it's a park now. But you can kind of see how the green belt swoops around the point of the arrowhead, and it continues around the whole arrowhead. In this photo, I zoomed in a little bit more than I intended to, but you can still see the L-shaped shopping center with the large parking lot. You can see Kmart on one side of the L and the Island movie theater on the other side of the L. Neither of those businesses exists today, but the shopping center is still there with different businesses. You can see Richmond Avenue and a little bit of the grassy side where their landfill was. So Sylvia and Frank got into a fight after the movie. The police report said she was last seen at the Kmart Plaza and Richmond Avenue. It wasn't very specific because it was Miss Eva filing the report, so she was only relaying what Frank had told her. We don't know specifically where Sylvia was last seen. The details of where Sylvia got out of the car has always been fuzzy. Frank gave 3 different descriptions. In one rendition, he said she got out at a stop sign. In another, it was at an intersection. And in another, it was in a traffic jam. Now, it's entirely possible that all 3 of those things were present in the same general area, but we're not sure where exactly. But obviously, the car would have had to have been stopped or slowed down enough for her to feel safe to get out. Well, hopefully that helps you guys visualize the area, and let me know if anything stood out to you. Thank you for watching, and join me for part 5, where we will explore more theories on what could have happened to Sylvia Lwowski.